Yo, what up, y'all? It's Once a Grove. I'm just reminiscing with my old school day ones, man. My homies, man, since the beginning, man. A 495 deep in Everett, man. My cousin Rizzo and DJ Slow-Mo. And, man, we're just sharing some information, man, in terms of, like, hip-hop, rap, urban music, you know what I'm saying? What's popular now? What was popular back in the day? Not necessarily had to have been popular, but obscure, esoteric, you know what I'm saying? Lesser known. Man, been sharing a lot of information, man, today in terms of like old school hip hop and what's popping now, man. So, just found out that my homie, man, DJ Slow-Mo, not to name drop, but you know what I'm saying? He let me know, man, that he's actually known Mercules, man, the rapper Mercules, since he was 17 years old, man. And it looks like he was outside of a venue waiting to get up in the club to do his set. And Slow-Mo and Mercules, man, they're cool like that. And he also says, man, here that he's also cool with Snack the Ripper. And, man, that's so dope, man. You know why? Because my cousin Rizzo, my biological cousin Rizzo, first time I ever went to Canada was with him and my other two cousins and and his dad and, you know what I'm saying, my sister and, my aunt. And my aunt and uncle, they're the ones that took us to Canada, man. We went to Expo 86. I fucking fell in love with Canada. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pro-US, man. Yeah, I used to be a, like, anarchist, like, skateboarder. But I was never really, like, anarchist. But you know what I'm saying? When you're a kid and you're rebellious and you're like, you know, fuck America, man. I'm an anarchist type shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm disestablishment, man. Fuck the police, like Ice Cube, NWA, Eazy, and all them said. You know what I'm saying? But then you grow up and you're like, yo, that was crazy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not anti-establishment, man. I want for these establishments to continue to exist. Pretty much indefinitely, man. America the Republic. You know what I mean? But, you know, when you're a kid, man, and you're influenced by whatever, you know what I'm saying? And you're impressionable and you have your, like childhood, like, young, like, adolescent, teenage, like, year thoughts and shit. I mean, that shapes who you are going into your young adult life, man. And there's a lot of police crime and corruption and shit in our neighborhoods, man. So, you know, man, we roll with the street gangs and shit. And we were like, yo, fuck the man and the establishment. Man, America's like the beast and evil and, you know what I'm saying? Type shit. But then you just kind of like get older and you're like, ah, man, I was tripping. But yeah, man, so that said, you know, man, on the subject of science in Canada, you know what's really fucking interesting to me, man? Being a sci-fi nerd, geek, IT, just all around nerd and geek my whole life, man. Growing up with the homies, man, reading sci-fi and playing video games, man, and doing what we did back in the 70s and 80s. You know what really... You know what's really like traveling to an actual parallel universe without actually traveling to a parallel universe? I'll explain, man. And that's what this podcast episode today is about. Casting 495 celebrities worldwide. I am your host. If you are a true and not fucking fake, phony, bogus ass fan, I'm One Sir Grove. This is C4CW. And I want to thank each and every one of you, true fans, for, you know, man, just tuning in again. So, you know, I'm always on some science shit, man, and I'm always talking about some pretty seemingly outrageous, over-the-top type shit, right? I'm always talking about parallel universes, the multiverse, yada, 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 blase, blah, right? Well, that's my thematic, that's my motif. I grew up watching many a show and movie and reading many a book, right, about the subject of going from one universe to an alternate universe, parallel universe, man. It was a recurring theme throughout my childhood. So obviously there's got to be something more to it than just these people like writing books and stories and scripts. There have to be parallel universes, man. And in fact, that's what CERN is looking into right now, man. And I just assume that they've already found them. As they say, that is what they're looking for. Parallel universes. And it's also pretty norm now. That is, it's pretty normal within academia for different scientists to discuss the very real possibility of there being other worlds. And if you look at the Bible, man, and other books of faith, you can see evidence, man, of other worlds in those scriptures if you know where to look, man, and if you know what I'm talking about. Because God in the what is it? Bear with me, man. I was out with some colleagues last night, man, and but yeah, so when you're looking at one God, right? And it'll come to me, man, and it's right there on the tip of my tongue. When you're looking at the one God theory, when you consider what is stated in the Bible about how there is one God, but God says we created man, that is humans, man, woman, in our own image. Well, what the fuck are they talking about? What is the Bible saying? God is a multiple? Like we? So it must be God and some other beings. Now, I've talked about this before. God created the angels, right? Light beings, beings that are made out of light. And so then, once God created an echelon, that is a hierarchy of beings, together, they apparently created humans. So that's the story of the Holy Bible, man. But there's also other stuff. There's other hints that God is the creator of all worlds. Of all worlds, man. That doesn't sound like just other planets, man. I mean, you can interpret it as you will. I mean, I understand when we say off-world in the like Stargate, Atlantis TV show and movie sense of it, then that means, going from one planet to another. But it can also mean like other universes. I tend to believe that God being the creator of all worlds means that he created multiple parallel universes. So, a lot of authors, a lot of writers, a lot of scientists believe that there are these different parallel universes. Well, without having to travel through some type of time tunnel, wormhole, without having to like create time travel or some type of time travel technology, if you live in North America and you are American and you have never been to Canada before, this is what is so surreal, and this is what I'm alluding to. Traveling to Canada, man, if you have never been there before, it is, depending on your parallax view, that is observation of the universe, multiverse, it is very much like, in my opinion, it is very much like traveling to a parallel universe of the United States. Now, again, listen, I'm not talking about actual time travel, where you get in some type of like Doctor Who telephone booth. There's no contraption. There's no like beam of energy where it rips and tears space and you go through, that is crawl through, move through the fabric of space-time. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about it just feels like you're in the United States, but it's not the United States. Now, I understand there are other countries where there are similarities to the U.S. and vice versa. France, a lot of European companies, just depends on where you are. But Canada, I think, is the most similar to the United States, given the contiguous U.S. and North America as a continent. I mean, the border is like natural terrain. I mean, it's not like there's a border wall there. And it's not like the people, I mean, listen, there are cultural and national and, ethnic differences, but there are also a lot of similarities and a lot of parallels. The other thing about Canada, man, that I've talked about is that when I was in an undergraduate program for business just after I'd been in a program for electronics engineering for 2 years. I was in a business program, and in that business program, one of the electives that was required was a geography. And in that geography class, I've talked about this before, but if you haven't heard the episode of the podcast that I'm referring to, I had a Chinese American professor of geography. I thought he was quite brilliant, and I loved the way that he taught the class. And he had been at CIA. He was open about that. He had worked in the Washington, D.C. Metro area, and he was at an underground facility inside of a SCIF, a secret compartmentalized intelligence facility, and where it's like a room suspended within a room by high tension cable and it's shielded from electromagnetic intercept, so signals cannot be intercepted from the facility. And so he used to look at a lot of Landsat imagery and images from space satellite imagery, and he was saying, okay, so then there's the part in the geography class where it's like back in the old school days before the advent of like today's high-speed internet, a lot of things were done by hand. I mean, everything was like, we had computers, but schools hadn't really they hadn't migrated over to the computer-based testing system. So tests were done on paper, man. Like, you take a fucking paper test, right? You do it all by hand. So he'd give us the outlines of the different countries and the different continents, and it was pretty straightforward. It was like fill in the blanks. Okay, so this is Europe. These countries with these outlines, what are they? What are those countries? And one of the things that he asked us is, what is the world's second largest country? People had blanks. They were like, Russia, China, India. And he's like, no, keep going. And he was just smiling, and people were like, well, what is it, Professor? Keep in mind, no smartphones, no real high-speed internet at the time. So people didn't have a way to access the internet. People just kind of had these blank stares. And he's like, nobody knows? Nobody knows. And they're like, everyone was like, well, not China? They're like, Mexico? And he's like, no. And he's like, all right, I'll give you one more. And I can't even remember, but it was just some random country. And he's like, man, Canada right there to the north, just to the north of us. And we were in Washington State. That's what was so funny about it, even more so, is, the border's right there. And in fact, my uncle, who took his sons, my sister, his wife, my aunt, and all of us to Canada in 1986, he had lived in Bellingham, Washington at some point. Bellingham is quite literally at the border. Depending on where you live in Bellingham, Blaine, there's a little town called Blaine. You can just cross the border. The border, it's right there. And I talked about this before. There was a Pacific Northwest television, Puget Sound television, news story about how Spank motherfucking T, that's the fellow rap artist from 495, Spank motherfucking T. Yes, that's his rap name, is Spank motherfucking T. Just like Easy motherfucking E, well, he's Spank motherfucking T. Spank motherfucking T and I, man, we're chilling at Grandma G's, and we're watching, they called my grandmother Grandma G before she passed. So we're chilling at Grandma G's, and so we're watching TV, man, and I've talked about this, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but basically, it was this expose about how, an expose regarding homeowners and residents of Blaine, Washington, the little small border town just before you get to Canada, and how at nighttime trucks would show up in this little small postcard picturesque community, and they would just unload whatever, you name it, kilograms of cocaine, guns, whatever you want to take over the border, man. Cartons of cigarettes, because American cigarettes have historically been a huge black market commodity in Canada, because they didn't have American cigarettes in Canada. In fact, when we were old enough to go to Canada to drink at the bars, which was age 19 forward, they used to ask us if we had like cigarettes that, could we give them a Marlboro or a Winston or Salem or a Camel or whatever, right? And so we'd be like, yeah, no problem. Here you go, man, for sure. For sure, homie. Man, because we're generous, and likewise, they were generous as well, man. And I remember I was smoking the French like exportes, and I remember the cigarette box opens differently. It like flips open, and I was like, wow. So, and that's part of the parallel universe of America that I want to get to, of the United States that I want to get to, because it's all North America. It's still North America, but America's here, and is Canada America? Well, Canada's Canada, but it's still North America. So, the lines kind of blur there, man. But so there's this little community where when the border was porous, people used to just traffic mad contraband, just mad crazy fucking whatever, man. Just like sex trafficking, like, so human beings, like I said, guns, drugs. I mean, man, people would literally just walk over the border. And there would be like a little irrigation ditch. And the news reporter's talking to the senior woman, and he's like, so ma'am, let me get this straight. At nighttime, she's like, yes, I hear the cars. She's like in her 80s. I hear the cars and the trucks, the rumbling of the vehicles, and they park somewhere. And he's like, over here. And he's like, yes. And I see sometimes some silhouettes and some shadowy figures and outlines of people. And he's like, okay. And so this side is where your home is, and this is the United States side, right? She's like, yes, that is correct. And then he literally jumps, like just kind of hops over this like little irrigation. I'm talking a little tiny fucking ditch. He just like, and it's grassy. It's like one of those like in the suburbs. It's like a little grassy like ditch. He hops to the other side, like hop. And he's like, and now I'm in Canada. And she's like, yes, that is correct. Then he hops back. He's like, I'm in the U.S. I'm in Canada. I'm in the U.S. I'm in Canada. So now that I think about it, damn, was he breaking the law? Holy shit. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm sure he has a legal team, you know what I'm saying? But I just thought about it, like, because I guess you're really not supposed to fucking do that. But, the world was different back then. So, yes, that's how fucking porous the border between Canada, the United States, and vice versa has been. It's been that fucking porous, believe it or not. So, we used to take trips up to Canada, man. Spank motherfucking T, he and I looked at each other like, word? Like, what? Like, man, like, no disrespect to America. That is the United States. But, yo, if we ever got to bounce up out this piece, we know where to jump over that little tiny fucking 6-inch fucking irrigation ditch and shit. And they were, like, saying on the news, and for reasons of like national, international security, we are not going to reveal or disclose exactly where this home is. It's like, we drove up there and we found that shit in like 4.5 minutes. You know what I'm saying? Blaine is a little tiny fucking town. We're like, okay, that's the house right there. It's that color. It was on the fucking news. We're like, pretty much, and you know what I mean? But the world is different now, and I'm not going to say where the fuck that place is. And, they got sensors and drones and shit now, and all kinds of post 9/11 shit in place. Do not fucking illegally cross the border, because I can't give you any type of legal or business advice, but there is a good fucking mathematical likelihood that you will get fucking caught. Alright? Obviously, drugs and contraband, black market goods, and human beings still go back and forth over that border, but yo, they catch a lot of people now, man, with biometrics, with sensors, with drones, with all kinds of shit. And I know there are people out there, Grove, you're tripping, man. We smuggle shit all the time. Ain't nothing gonna happen to someone trying to get over the border. Okay, that's your opinion, man. Like I said, your parallax view of the multiverse. I wouldn't be risking that shit for a few thousand, a few tens of thousands, or a few hundreds of thousands. Shit. Let alone probably fucking some millions of dollars, man. Because the one dude told me we were talking about the mule shit. He told me, man, that if he had gotten caught, man, with the number of bricks that he had on him accordingly, it's an instant life sentence, man. There's no way to get out of it. Like, there's a certain number, man, and if you get hit with so many bricks, when the feds hit you off with the time, it's enough time that equals a life sentence. So some of these drug mules, man, when they run that border, they're risking life in fucking prison. That is life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for a few thousand fucking dollars, man. Few thousand fucking dollars. And word on the streets was dude did it because he had to pay his rent. I'm just fucking saying, man. Woo. So yeah, man. Wow. Fucking wow. But so let's get back to the parallel universe topic here at hand, as discussed. So the thing that's interesting about Canada, man, assuming that someone legally crosses into Canada, again, I can't give any kind of legal or business advice, and none of this information herein should be construed as such. But yeah, quite interestingly, man, if you go to Canada for the very first time, and I'm talking about Vancouver, British Columbia specifically. What's very striking, very eye-opening, very surreal is it's almost like you're in the United States. But you're in a country that is the second largest country in the world. That is how fucking vast Canada is. And what our professor was saying was that most of the population of Canada, which is a very tiny, small fraction of the U.S. Population, the Canadian population, a lot of it is concentrated along the southern border of Canada. So basically next to the northern portion of the U.S. That's where most of Canada's population is. And, over time, humans will expand outward up north. But, the Canadian ice shield is permafrost. It's been fucking frozen for tens of millions of years. Just fucking solid frozen ice. You can't live out there, man. Unless you're alien, unless you're Canadian military establishment or, some advanced military industrial complex, and you set up some NASA European Space Agency type biodomes and shit. I mean, man, we're talking about permafrost. The shit is frozen, solid, ice. How the fuck you gonna live out there, man? How you gonna get utilities when everything's fucking frozen? How you gonna pump water to your shit when everything's fucking frozen? I mean, think about pipes freezing and bursting in homes every winter and how much that costs. How expensive is that shit every time someone has to pay for that shit when the pipes burst inside the walls of homes? How the fuck you gonna have a home up in the Canadian ice shield, man? And the shit is just perilous, man. You out in the middle of fucking nowhere. Imagine emergency response and like seniors living out there and shit, and someone slips, falls, or whatever, and then some ambulance or, emergency responder group, they have to travel some distance out to some rural, rustic, like outlying, like boony sticks type shit in perma fucking frost. Solid Canadian ice shield. It's like, man, you might not even be able to fucking get there. So logistically, man, it's just not realistic or feasible so much to live. But, in the future, shit starts to thaw out, you know what I mean? And also, obviously, depending on where you are in the Canadian ice shield, where it is frozen or has been, man, I'm sure similar to like what we've seen in Alaska, where parts of Alaska were permanently or thought to be permanently frozen. I mean, shit's changing. You got that tundra out there, and those polar ice caps are melting. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, who fucking knows? But in terms of Vancouver, British Columbia, Vancouver, British Columbia, Burnaby, Surrey. Man, when I was in Canada, I used to just look around like, wow, is this the United States? I mean, it's not, and I know it's not, and I know I'm in Canada. By the way, I used to drive myself up to Canada on the weekends as an adult over the age of 19. I'd literally just drive up to the border, and they'd ask the same questions all the time. Do you have any, is anyone in the car under the age of 18? What is the purpose of your visit? And we just say, look, man, we're just going out to party, man. We're going out, and they're like, okay, we assumed as much. That's cool. They'd be like, do you have any guns? Do you have any ammo? Do you have any fireworks? Any explosives? Do you have any vegetation? Do you have any plants? Do you have any animals? Do you have any runaways with you? And that was, do you have any tobacco products? Do you have any alcohol? Do you have any drugs? And that was pretty much the questions that they asked. And like I had shared with the audience, if you've listened to past podcasts, I actually flirted with the idea of becoming a Border Patrol agent after high school, because back then you could retire after 10 years of basically like living in the outdoors, like living off the terrain, because it was so hazardous, and you would be on like ATV, all-terrain vehicles, and like three-wheelers and quads, four-wheelers and whatnot, and you'd be out patrolling the landscape, man. Similar to like the French Foreign Legion, like you just be living outdoors for 10 fucking years, dealing with armed, sometimes, drug dealers and whatnot. I'm saying sometimes armed, sometimes unarmed, but nonetheless, you're dealing with fucking drug cartels, you're dealing with terrorists, you're dealing with this, you're dealing with that, right? So you can retire, or back then you could retire after 10 years of service. And I was like, yo, 10 years outside high school, I can fucking retire? Like full pension, benefits, like all, what? My parents were in the military for 20 plus years, man. Fucking, I could work 10 years and retire. So I flirted with the idea. I got the book from the library for the test, Arco Publishing, AARCO. And I started to read the book, and I was like, yo, this is doable. And then I got into other fields, and I lost interest in becoming a Border Patrol agent. But I learned some really interesting stuff, man, about the border, and so anyway, so when you're in Canada, man, for the first time, at least back in the 1990s, and when I was there even earlier as a child, back when I was under the age of 13, I wasn't even a fucking teenager back then. I was at Expo 86, and then later, when I was an adult going up to Canada myself and with my friends, some young men and women within our age group, we used to go together up to Canada. We'd take like 6 carloads of people, man, and just like rent out a bunch of different hotel rooms and what have you, and just party, man, and just get fucking trashed, and then explore, like just go around Canada, man, and check shit out. And so, yeah, one of the things that's a trip, man, is, at least back then, this is all in the context of back then. I haven't been to Canada for a long time, man, but I used to go up on a regular basis. Like every other weekend or sometimes every weekend. And my homeboy from childhood, he was just telling me today, man, that he had pretty much been like living, in Canada. That's how often he was up there. I just found that out today, which is dope. So we're talking about, I was sharing with him Maestro Fresh Wes, Canadian rapper at the time, who later changed his name to just Maestro. Man, the very first time I saw Canadian rap, I was at the Best Western Hotel, which at the time was very comfortable. Just saying, man. And I was right downtown by the by the Vancouver, British Columbia college. And so I'm with my ex girlfriend at the time, and this dude and his chick that he was dating at the time. So there was 4 of us. We got a room, and man, the TV's on. I'm drinking and shit. Dude that drove us up there, man, because at the time this dude drove. man, he just got like day wasted, man. Like he just got some drink and just got like obliterated like during the day and shit. I was like, wow. And then my chick at the time, my ex and her friend, they went out. And so it's just the fellas, man, the two of us. So I'm watching TV, man, when he's passed out. And it's Much Music Television, man. Our version of, it's like MTV. So you see what I'm saying? Parallel. We have MTV. They have Much Music Television. There's this rapper, man, who I see for the first time, and he's like rocking the Toronto Blue Jays. Rocking Toronto fucking Blue Jays jersey, and he's on top of a skyscraper. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And as it turns out, it was Maestro Fresh West, man. I was like, oh my God, this is dope. Look, man, Canada. You're in Canada. It's like the United States, but there are no nuclear weapons. It's like the United States, but you're higher up on the map. You know what I'm saying? Like you're closer to the North Pole. The shit you're seeing, like architecturally, it's like America. It's like the United States. But there are some differences, slight differences. On one hand, it's the same, but on the other hand, it's not. Organized crime's different too. Down in the States, it's more behind closed doors. In Canada, historically, man, if you read from the Encyclopedia of Organized Crime, the mob in Canada tends to be a little bit more out in the open. Okay? You go to get you some Doritos chips, right? They have brands of Doritos that they don't have in the United States. So you're like, whoa, why doesn't this exist in the U.S.? Why do these flavors only exist up here? And some of the shit is in French. I'm just saying, man, candy, food items, cigarettes, like alcohol, like brands. It's a trip, man. It's like you're in the U.S., but you're not. And you're in a country that's the second, like the perspective of the landscape is different. It's like the United States, but it's a little bit colder. You know what I'm saying? It's just like so many things that it's like those like 1 to 2 degrees of divergence, like you hear about in the John Teeter story of time travel. And I mean, man, looking around in Canada, you're like, this is like the United States, but it's not though. You know what I mean? I can't really describe it beyond how I've just described it unless you go there, man, for the first time, if you've never been there. And I'm just going to have to say this too, man. It's like the United States, but on the average, people tend to be a little bit more friendlier, man. I'm just saying. People tend to be a little bit friendlier on the average, man. And I hate to say this too, but America's scores in terms of like our educational system. Man, I've seen the numbers. I've seen the fucking numbers. They tend to be a little higher in terms of academic performance. So the conversations you're having with people there, I'm just saying, man, they're a little bit fucking different. There's so many instances of that, man. So many instances of it's like the United States versus any of these other countries on the planet, but it's different. Bigger land area, smaller population. That's a trip too, man. When you realize you're in this fucking big ass country, but it has a fraction of U.S. population. You see what I mean? I mean, I could go on and on, man. The way the military operates, the way their intelligence services operates, the different ethnic groups. It's just so interestingly parallel, but slightly different at the same time. Minutely different at the same time. Yeah, there are a lot of huge differences, but there are these parallels that are so close, they slightly diverge. So it's amazing, man. It's an amazing feeling, man, to experience that. And that's all without actual real world time travel, having to jump into some type of time tunnel, having to use some type of like time device and shit. But yeah, man, Canada's awesome. You know, I mean, fucking amazing. Absolutely fucking amazing, man. I've never really heard anyone say anything bad about Canada. You know, they put maple syrup on shit. You know what I'm saying? Their beer, some of it seems a little watered down. I mean, you know, Molson Ice and shit, you know, whatever, man. The alcohol content is different. And things are just slightly fucking different there, man. But it's definitely on par with America. It has its strengths. It has its weaknesses. It has its pros and its cons. Just like the United States, I hold both countries in high regard, on equal footing. Despite, I mean, look, man, they're a country that's smart enough to not fucking possess nuclear weapons. I mean, come on, man. That's a fucking plus right there, man. I mean, you know, the fact that they just don't possess any fucking nuclear weapons in and of itself, come on, man. I mean, that's winner mentality, man. That's winner mentality, man. In the environment, man, back, I don't know about today, but like the carbon, you know, footprint output, I know Canada used to lead. They used to be one of the top. Like the air quality up there, man, used to be very, very, very clear and clean. And you just, man, you know, just step outside and you just like, you're like, man, I'm in fucking Canada, man. I'm on top of the world damn near. And pretty much am. You know, depending on one's parallax view. You see what I'm saying? You rotate that globe and kind of wherever you are, you're on top of the world. But sensory-wise, there's a feeling of elation, like that first time, like you like touch down in Canada. You're just like, damn, I'm on top of the map, man. And the air is fresh, and this place is ultra fucking popping. I'm just saying, man. It's kind of like AON Records Canada, AON Records United States. You know what I mean, man? There's just so many fucking parallels, man.